right, as we begin to turn inwards, I want you to set up some props so that you can work on the respiratory muscle focus. So what you'll need is a couple blankets at the back of your space where your head is going to lie on. I would say this might seem a little bit bulky, like a pretty high stack. You might even want more than that. So what would be nice is if they're folded so that if the part closest to your head, you can always just turn it over one more time if you need more support, or grab a little pillow, right? Like a small pillow that you could put under your head if that's helpful. Bolster is horizontal. This is key for this respiratory one. You're going to have maybe a therapy ball nearby, maybe a sandbag and a couple blocks, and then get your belt and settle yourself in front of the bolster so that the bolster is going to be kind of a ramp for your ribs. Just bring your feet together, the soles of the feet together, and taking some blocks under the legs. So I'm just going to position my blocks at the second setting. And so they're between the back of my knee, and actually since my knees tip outwards, they're slanting out. The block is pretty comfortable if it's a foam block. And as we arrive in the first pose, you can find out how you can design the curve with the support of the block. We'll see what happens. So get a belt, buckle it up so you're going to have a big loop. Before you put it over your head and around your hips, it's got to be connected. I guess you could connect it after you get it around your hips. But as you place the loop from the back of the pelvis, buckle is in easy reach to your hip. So I turn it or slide it so it's going to be an easily accessible. And then scoop up your feet. And when the feet are scooped up, maybe give them like this extra little tug. So you're pulling, so this is supposedly going to be helpful for calming the nervous system. Once you're all placed on these props and have this holding you, you're probably not going to get up and do anything. You're just going to get into your practice. That's why we're buckling up. And the bolster is going to support me, so I have my sandbag nearby and my ball, because I will use those. But first things first, we just lower back, and we really use this arch of our spine. And I tend to move my blocks so they kind of contour to my thigh. And as I guide back, I get my sand, and on the sand goes onto the rib intersection. It could be really high, and you can tell if you lower back to your blankets, which I hope you are going to now, you might find that you need the blanket at the top, right, a little higher in the first few moments. If it's a little too much, just feels like the blood pressure changes too fast and maybe your neck is not comfortable with this arch, you can always take the top blanket and just roll it a little bit, curl it, and maybe your breathing will be easier. So keep in mind when we're in this supine position, when the head lowers back and the ribs expand, it's definitely beginning to challenge our respiratory muscles. So if in the beginning you need more height under your head, it's because of this rib stretch. Open out the arms so they're behind at the other side of the bolster, right towards your head. So they're not under or on top, they're just floating out. And if the blocks aren't quite secure, fuss a bit. Yeah, be fussy so that as you enter the first pose, each of these poses, I would say more of the kind of the thicker, sensible, right? These types of shapes, the suptas is what we call them, the suptas, Supta Baddha Konasana, are the ones that we want to be in for a little bit of time to access that deep stretch in the breathing muscles, helping the digestive system, pressing into the kidneys. So simply feel that fluidity of the in and the out breath, and just noticing as the spine maintains its curves. Just letting that reveal focus into the ribs. Breathing in slow and exhaling completely. Just begin to set your focus in this just brief amount of your daytime, really, to practice self-care and to notice the breath, the phases of where you can focus in the body, just getting to know yourself between breath and the bones. And now turn the sandbag so it's straight down from the heart to the belly. And as you stretch your arms back, reaching them both so that it is a kind of a tandem reach with our breathing muscles, right? Even though we definitely can think of one arm, the other arm, we may not spend energy on one side of the rib, the other side. It kind of feels like a rib barrel, right, in the center, but there are two sides. So I want you to just work on reaching the right arm a little further back, straight behind you, so it's farther for a moment with the breath. And then come back center, stretch the left arm back, feeling the circulation in the shoulders. And come back center and feeling the hands up, reaching a little bit higher. You're going to roll your shoulders, kind of scrunch the shoulders up towards the ears and making little circles with the shoulder blades. So not only are you hoping to keep breathing slow, but movement coaching in our shoulders. And then as your arms release back downwards on the way, remove the sand. And we'll unbuckle and then start to guide the soles of the feet to step down. And as the feet step down, I'll just move my blocks a little bit off to the side, besides my legs, but not in the side yard, so to speak. And then take a ball. Okay. Now, since we land here in what's more so mountain brick pose, it's all that circulation layers in our breathing muscles, our digestive tract. I mean, it's such a lab internally. So I find when we work on our restoratives, many of them, not every single one, we have movement patterns in between poses like cat-cow. But when you're here, feel how you land into your tail, right? It kind of curves back to the bolster. It's kind of in between bolster and floor of touching. And lift the right foot and carefully cross the ankle on the right ankle to the left knee or just above the knee and place the ball to the upper outer left thigh. I'm going to keep the block over there because I'm probably going to need it for my foot. Okay, so the ball is upper outer left thigh. It might feel like it's at the very corner of the hip on the left side. And I kind of push it in. So when I push it towards the right, my knees are going to guide to the left. Well, actually, my whole lower extremities are going left. And just like I was hoping, the block's kind of there to help me out. It's to the very side of my left lower leg. The left hand holds onto the right knee. Right, good luck getting that. That's not an easy feat. So if you find that you'd rather be an easy feet version with your foot just relaxing and not holding your knee, no problem. But the right arm stretches straight back. It's kind of a little kitty corner back to the right side. And if you decide you want to lower your blanket by now, that's okay. I'm going to keep it. This two blanket stack up seems to be the best for my neck. But I do want to convey that focus of the chin just gently lifting, the throat lengthening, the right arm opening, breathing. Just feeling where that sensation is into that right hip. Okay, it's a little more balance of chest opening, back strengthening, and hip. So there's a nice blend here. Okay, now let go of the knee. And then as you start to bring that leg path back into center, just take a few moments, uncross the right foot from the left knee and just march it out. So you're in a reclining position, alternate lifting a foot off the ground. You don't have to lift your feet very high, but one at a time. You kind of feel how the back of the pelvis gets a little bit of a massage with movement. Right, movement is a massage, right, for these parts of our body. If you think of it just walking, right, it's so nice for us to do that. But in our practice, we're defining these spaces that we're breathing into and reorganizing the posture. So now as the right foot centers down, take it easy how you're going to get that left foot over to the right knee. So I'm going to put the ball to the upper outer right thigh. My block is on the way here. Okay, and then I'm going to bring my elbows to my bolster. I'm really short, so I can kind of press into here. Some of us might have our elbows on the floor. But as the left foot crosses up over to the right knee, if I engage in my lower back, what I do want to emphasize is that you're trying to cultivate some awareness in your hips here. And they're right below the bolster, right? So it's kind of the location of them is clear and isolated. So as the knees tilt, the legs, everything below the pelvis and below are tilting to the right, and you'll reach for the left knee with the right hand. One side to the next could be not quite the same ease. You might find like having to kind of reach further with my shoulder to get the knee. Maybe the hip's a little tighter on this side. Okay, use the block to that right side below your outer leg, but just besides your knee or maybe under your left foot. Okay, and all of us have different lengths, right, with our extremities. So some of us might have the block right on the side under the foot instead of the side of the lower leg. Holding and reaching open with the left arm. So my right hand holds the knee. My left arm is reaching open and a little bit back to the left corner. And just observing the pace of your breath when you're in this deep chest opener and back bend. Notice if you can lengthen the inhale. And even more so that exhale. In the last few moments in this reclining position, just scanning where the spine is stretching, right? It may feel like it's compressing for some of us, but it's extending, right? This is what we want spines to do. As we get older, right, we don't want to lose this capacity, this range of motion. So we just put props under us so we can hold these shapes. Okay, now release the grip of your knee and let's take our way all the way to side sage on the left. So giving you that kind of notice, it allows you to travel to that pose at your own kind of direction. So for me, I'm going to uncross the left ankle from the knee and just let my knees rock side to side. See if I can feel that momentum move into my hip. And then as I go to that left side, I'm going to really try to get the left arm to move a little bit back to stretch my ribs on the bolster. Bring my elbow in next to the bolster on the other side and then start to shift so I'm on my left hip. Okay, so if you got your belt still on your mat, you might want to slide that away so it's not a nuisance at all. Put it off to the side yard. Okay, have a block or two overhead. You know, this one, I kind of like using the blankets like this for side sage. We've only been doing this type of blanketing recently in the session. So you might keep it the same. And if you're used to having the blanket stacked horizontal, this has been our kind of norm. Under your head, you could keep that too. Okay. This is just a different idea with it would be, I still have my arm between the bolster and the blanket, but I'm just going to add one block on top. And you might have your hand reach the block, you might not. Okay, so the ball goes to the inside of the right knee. The sand, if you're using it, is going to be placed possibly where you could use the most support for your bones, right, is on the hip. Okay, of course, the ribs is another spot that people love to feel that success of breathing, enriching, right, with the weight of the sand. But as you lean down into your blanket, you can extend the right arm overhead to touch to the block, and you could bring another block here too. So if you decide, well, I want a little more height, take it easy, and then arrive with that right hand reaching. And as the left arm stretches through, it could be kind of a passive release down with the left arm. I'm not trying to strive too much. You can push the ball a little further back to enhance the stretch of the circulation in the right hip, right? So this is a hip stretch, right? So when I reach back, the hip flexor, it's a great stretch for the abdominal muscles. Really nice. Right arm can be overhead or on the side. It doesn't have to be stretching and stressing. But finding where you can rest your brain and receiving the circulation from the pose. Just feeling where the arm extends out of the back. Now, if that's a strain in the shoulder joint, even just a little bit, right? It might be helpful so that you can still receive this rib support to have the right arm down on the side or rest it on the bolster. Okay, that's completely fine. And you're still working on that relationship of the stretch into this right hip. So give a few more breaths here. Kind of scanning how the pelvis is on its left side. Now be careful the sand doesn't have you turn the push it into the hip and the knee. So we're not trying to get this rotation this away, right, with my hip joint, because that's going to establish, pressure in my knees. So you want to feel like you really are on the side. Okay. You give it a few more breaths, wherever the right arm feels good for you. With that length in the side, okay, let's release. So first things first, the sand goes away. We're going to come around to hands, knees, and just explore the movement relationship of front and back lines, front and back spaces. Okay, so unwind, come to hands, knees. You know what you might play with on this is get close to a wall and have your bolster between, right? So it's in the center, so you can actually push into it if you need to. So it's between the knees and my arms. It's actually closer to my arms, I suppose. But when my knees are on blanket or floor, feet touch the wall, and feel the spine flex, chin to chest, curl the tail under, but feel the hands push, and then arching the spine, tail back. Feel the spine round. Go slow, like half the pace that you think you should do. Really embody this movement from inhale, one breath per movement, to exhale, curling through the spine. Okay, now, the components, right, the upper, all the way into the neck, as you let the spine flex under, you can feel the abdominal muscles pull in. They kind of move in and up, don't they, when your pelvis draws under. And then with the feet touching to the wall, let's lift up the knees and reach the heels so they're up at the base of the wall. If you happen to have a baseboard, it can be kind of helpful. But however they are, the balls of the feet press, so you stretch your feet a little, and it's easier to get upside down when my heels are up, especially on a wall. Okay, so I like how to reinforce my arms with the bolster personally, but just give it a few moments. So we move the circulation, the blood flow back to the heart, the lungs. Circulation to the brain is what we're focusing on here. Okay. All of that for the brain, huh? Okay, come back to hands, knees, and then walk the hands on forward so you can let your hips lean into the bolster. If you're too close to the wall, just push a little bit away. I like to push the wall with the feet and then just kind of inquire into that torso stretching, that waist reaching. Yeah, if you're just tired on this one, you can bring your elbows down and still stretch the torso in Sphinx pose, no problem. Okay. If the wrists don't like that, you come down the elbows. And then when we come back to table, we're going to move our bolster just a little further away from the wall if we're using the wall. And then we'll turn into side sage on the right hip. So I want you to just pivot, and sometimes it's helpful when I just lean down into my hip. You can feel all the curve action. I would imagine it might be, I think it's more relatable to kind of feel the curves in my back when I'm in a side stretch versus on my back. I feel a little scared on that to how much pressure I go into. So really use this to help ease your back, right? Side bends, side stretches are really nice for back care, right? You could say to have the back at peace. Okay, so take a ball inside the left knee, or it could be lower. Some people find it just a little bit further down, some a little further up. And as the sand goes up to that left hip, if you're going to use it, no requirement. Might be some days you don't want to, but you're going to lean down to that bolster blanket set. And then as you're supporting your head on the blankets, that's key. I want you to stretch the left arm overhead. Okay. Well, actually, you don't have to. So if you do feel like that's okay and appropriate for your shoulder, go for it. It's a nice way to work on the extremity support for circulation, right, in our armpit chest, in the pec muscles. It's a slight bit, but it's mostly armpit chest that we get that stretch down through the sleeve into the upper side of the back. Right? Everything matters, all these little parts, huh? So the particles of movement, right? Reaching, let your head rest into the blankets, breathing. You just feel how we send the spine. If this is pretty cozy for you, then kind of celebrate that. Like you've got the side sage down. This isn't easy for people to actually master. So most of it after you do this for a while is to be able to trust the props and just relax into them to hold your shape for the benefits of circulation. So taking the moments of refining the stretch of the breath in the ribs. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, scanning how the leg bones are. Okay, this doesn't feel like pigeon pose, I know, but we are going to go there a little bit. I want you just to notice how the back, that's actually the top thigh, how that stretches the hip flexor, the front of the thigh lid, and the right leg has this convenient bend just touching to the bolster. So when we do take these other shapes that look like they're more challenging, this is about what that shape is, except you're on your sitting bone, right? So they're all kind of related, huh? All of these are maybe relatable if you're in a different shape and just kind of study how the bones relate. This could be a little bit easier for you than the other one, pigeon. But just notice they're kind of the same, just different position on the seat. Okay, now when we shift from this space of extension in our side, enjoy it. If that left arm can reach, it could open out. You could kind of roll into the shoulder, get some movement. And then when we do come back to hands, knees, let's shift our bolster this time. So I want you to roll. See if you can roll and kind of move that sand with the hip. Okay, who knows? Have you ever tried to get out of that pose with the sand still stuck to your hip? The excitement we have in this restorative yoga is kind of silly, huh? Okay, so ball goes aside. Now, we're going to take our blocks to the side yard. I want you to have one on each side. I'm not going to put mine on the right because then you can't see me very well. But use a blanket just because our knees can use the cushion here. So unless you're on such a comfortable ground, you probably won't need a blanket. But if you're on a surface that's a little bit firm, maybe a little bit more cushion, could be allow you to stretch your hip flexor more. The other blanket goes off to the side, and then take your bolster and push it away, okay? And stretch out your upper back and well, actually the inner line of the arms too. Okay, so one way you could work towards this is to put a block under your forehead, or you can just go freestyle without the block. Be a little careful if you lower your head to the ground, right? I don't want you to create more of this curve in the neck. So if a block works, I've used a ball before on it under my forehead, and then I have little dots on my forehead for a while. So you might not want to have your ball under your forehead. Why not, huh? But the block should be the lowest setting. And it can be very peaceful, right? To have the block here at the forehead, at the frontal lobes, it can be really calming. So reaching with the upper extremities, feel the stretch through the armpit chest. Okay. Okay, now bring the right hand down so that palm touches. If the left arm is still on the bolster, great. Okay, just press through that right hand so you still have that reach with the left arm only. And then switch sides, right arm on the bolster, right hand, and then left hand down on the floor. So the elbows kind of out to the side a little bit. It might feel kind of insect-like, I usually think of when I'm in this one. But as you're reaching with that right limb, feel the right side of the waist. Really try to claim that extension of the torso, the reach, breathing. Perfect. Now lower down through both hands, and I want you to take the bolster, turn it lengthwise so you can actually rest your ribs and your abdominals onto that bolster. First things first, just stretch the heart forwards. Okay, so you're in a variation of upward facing dog. My feet are kind of actively pushing the wall right now to support and give a little bit of kind of cushion to my lower back, right? Gives it a little more spring quality into my spine. And then go, slow. Gravity will have you kind of go fast here, but you're going to lower down and you'll just place the elbows on the ground so that the palms open, the spine arches. Sphinx pose. Maybe close your eyes so you can really feel how the rib space is. Right, selectively kind of angle outwards. Okay, the feet could push firm into the wall so your knees lift up. That might be a nice dynamic to have, or you can just rest your knees. And then one arm at a time back. So we're going to eventually go both, right? We won't just do one at a time, but one at a time stretches besides your leg, then the opposite arm. In locust pose, our arms are reaching back, our shoulders may feel like they have no ability to help out, but it's nice to have shoulders. Okay. Everything matters as far as in a body, right? This all helps out. So press into your feet, bring the hands down, thank goodness. Up dog, lift up through the heart, chest up towards the ceiling, just try. And then we come back to hands, knees, round the back into cat pose, chin to chest. Just naturally arch the spine, smooth. Okay, and let's take the knees in towards each other so they're touching, at least the inner border of the knee. And take a step forward with the right foot. And let's pivot the bolster to horizontal across the mat now. And you might need a couple blocks, one under each hand, but guide into a low lunge. So we're going to lean forward so the right knee is just above the ankle. Stretch through the left hip flexor, arch the spine, lifting up. See if you can even stretch your eyes up to the ceiling. And so feeling what that's like for the neck. Then maybe close your eyes. Feeling that stretch through the left thigh. Okay, now reverse lunge. Same leg forward. You're just going to push into your blocks and guide your hips back and flex the right foot. So what I have is just the heel. The back of the heel is reaching. My right foot flexes. And it just goes with gravity, right? I'm not trying to do anything completely out of line with easing my hip bones back. Right? It's kind of a natural work of the foot to flex. It kind of some of those natural things that are not what you maybe do all day long, but just easing. I mean, we're not going to be bouncing in the stretch, but feeling how the undercurrent, just the currents of energy in the hamstring and the calf. I like the bolster so I don't lock my knee. Okay. And then as you work your way towards stepping into the right foot, okay, do a little bit of forward and back. This is a nice way to warm up before we do pigeon. So we go forward, we go back. We're just kind of working and striding through the muscles in the back of the leg. And then when we step into that right foot, the back foot hooks under. I'm pushing into the wall a little bit. So I'm going to guide my blocks as high as I can bring them. Can't get them to go any further up here. Okay, any farther. So step the left foot to the right and have it into an uttanasana. So that means feet, they're under the hips. So generally speaking, we're going to have it just so they're comfortably under my hip bones. But as I reach my ribs forward, I can take my blocks farther out and feel the heel lightly lift up, and then settle my heels and all the corners of the bottoms of my feet, and then take the sitting bones to reach back. Okay, now some of you are going to decide to lower down entirely into an inversion, which means head below heart. So you could lower your head down and hold your elbows. And some of us will stay holding the blocks, which I think is great. So you decide, right? Should I hold my elbows? Should I hold my legs? If you hold your arms or the legs and you notice the knees are kind of starting to twitch inwards, they're turning into more of an X leg pattern, then you want to really plant into your heels and really feel that association into the sitting bones lifting up and outwards. You don't want things to squeeze in, okay, and cross over the center line. So just be clear that you can feel your heels and the weight of your brain down. You choose head up or head down. Or heading out of the pose anytime, right? It's up to you. Okay. Blood pressure alert, right? We're going to come up. So you're going to bring the hands to your hips. You're going to reach your head forward away from your spine, even though it can't get away from your spine really, huh? And then bring your arms out. You can see part of me, the hands touch overhead. Breathe. And then as you bend the knees, this helps a ton. Exhale, let the arms stretch open, come down, and then hands on blocks, bring them in. next to your feet. Doesn't have to be in the front, it could be to the side. And then step the right foot back. And we'll come into that second side slowly. So we're going to go to that low lunge. So the back knee down to the blanket. Of course, I guess you could have your hands on your thigh, right, and have this version too. But I prefer just keeping it really focusing on marinating kind of that back quad, the front of the back thigh. So my left knee guides forwards, not over the toes. So I might have to kind of creep my left foot a little farther out here, or forward, I suppose, so that my hip is strengthening around that left side, kind of bolting into the hip, stretching through the back leg. And then when I start to lift up through my chest, even lifting my focus up to the ceiling, you can always close your eyes and just feel that inside layer lengthening. Feels good, right? The factor of the hands touching the blocks is useful because they're the same height, right? So we want props that are going to help us balance the bones, the posture. Okay, now come back to reverse lunge. I guess we didn't do this on this side yet, right? So I'm not coming back to it, but we're starting it. So reaching through the bottom half of that left leg. So as the left foot, it just kind of naturally flexes, right? When I lean my hips back, the foot just lifts up. You can always play with what would it be like if I try to point my toes, but naturally using the bolster, maybe it supports it beneath the leg. Maybe it isn't under the leg yet. In time, you could use the block height in different ways, right? You can lower it. You have 3 levels here with the blocks. Okay, what I like to notice, even if you have this flexibility mentality of, okay, I'll get my head to my knee or something, kind of feel what happens in the lower belly here. So you're reaching the hips back. You're pumping that area with the breath. You're changing the circulation in it a little bit from what you were doing before, right? It was stretching it. So after all that stretch, right, a few moments ago we were here, it was really giving a taut stretch in the abdominals. Just let them relax. Okay, now we're going to blend the 2 parts here. Okay, are we ready? Okay, now bend the left knee. The knee is going to aim forward because that's a good place for a knee to go in general at all times. Okay, take the blocks in front. They can go high, they can go mid-height. And you're going to walk the left foot toe heel to the right side of your mat. Okay, now the back knee is still forward. My left knee moves out, but it is in the hope to support the hip stretch. So I'm coming into pigeon pose. So what I want you to emphasize is you are going to either go into the upper pigeon focus, so seated pigeon, lifting up the ribs, or sleeping pigeon, which is the elbows on the blocks or the floor and leaning down, which is probably a deeper stretch, right? In some ways, the other is, posturally enhances that strength in our back. And this one in the hip. Okay, they're both hip stretches, right? Whether in here or in here, lower and down. But if it's too much on your knee, right? If you feel like, I don't really care for this, I'll give you a modification here in just a second. But if you find you're sitting there wondering, is there something else I can do? You can put a ball under your left rear and it helps a lot. Okay. So I just would lean into my right thigh and then take a ball and place it under my left rear, or a blanket or a block, right? Anything extra if you don't happen to have a ball. That will be easier on the knee. Okay, and so I actually like it. I can do the other version as well, but I'm always trying to do something a little bit more cautious around knee stuff. Okay, if you're not going to do seated, this pigeon version, just simply sit on the bolster and place a block under your left foot and lean forward. Right, so simple cross-legged, left foot is on some height. Okay, hands could hold the bolster over each other, so you're not rounding the shoulders so much. Okay, good version. I like this one. Okay, those of us in this variation for the hip, pigeon or seated forward fold. I guess we could call that one pigeon fold. Hopefully all that means is pigeon fold, nothing else. Okay, now when I'm coming out of the shape, I'm going to lean my weight in my left seat. If I have the ball there, I'm going to just move it aside and then swing the right leg forward. And then as the left leg stretches back, then I come into that second side. Okay, now if you're not going to take this shape, if you were here before a few moments ago, you'll just switch it, right foot on the block. So if you're using the block under your foot, remember it's engaging the same hip that some of us are doing in pigeon. But with that reach, I mean, when I'm down in this more prone position, right, I suppose it's a little easier for me to monitor how my spine is arching than if I'm sitting and tilting. So you've got to be a little careful when you're sitting up on your bolster and going forward that you're not overly rounding. Okay, this way you really can't do too much of that because your spine is at attention here. So right hip focus, remember ball can go under the seat. Even if it's just a little bit to the side, it can feel really helpful. And as you're leaning forward, feel the arch. There's a lot of energy in a hip on this shape. So really marinating in the inner right leg, the leg pit and the groins. Just feeling, maybe closing your eyes. Just sensing breath. You can have the foot lift up at the wall. You can bend the back knee. You can push a little further away if you don't like the wall under your foot. And now when we come up, we're all going to meet in a seated pose. We're going to work on seated work and into the walls to support our shoulders, opening through the chest, posture support. So when I lean down to the right rear, because that's kind of how we motion in the hip here, I'm going to just move the ball out if I have that. And as you come around with that left leg, let's scoot the bolster back. Okay, so you want to be closer to the wall so you can just reach it with your, I would say a light hand press, but not like you have the arm bent that much. I want you to feel like you can use this to kind of reinforce the movement in the ribs. So I'm going to move it just a tad back because this is I think the most amazing work is doing wall work for our seated twists. It's when we sit and you look at people without support of the wall, there's just a lot of hunching and rounding. It's hard to get that motivation inwardly when the arm doesn't have anywhere to be supported. So let's take a seat with the left leg stretching out to about 10 o'clock on that left side. And you'll move your right foot to the bolster. So if you can't see, I'll just kind of turn on. I won't be mirroring you, I know, but you can tell that my leg is out. My foot is to the bolster, not necessarily the leg, right? So if my foot is touching the bolster, then my hip can open a little bit better, right? So if I push it over here, it's going to kind of make me a little bit more, drop in my guts. So use the bolster as this kind of elementary, the only word that comes to me is heightener, but that doesn't really make any sense, does it? So that's okay. All right, ball under right knee, sandbag on right thigh. Yeah, let's use a block instead of a belt on this. So let's make it comfy for our arms. So you're going to have a block besides the left knee, so it's about the second or the third setting. Might as well make it comfy, so you could go start with the top and then the highest setting. If the left knee is locking, like you can see that it's really maybe going to keep smushing down. Something you could do would be to put either, you could switch this out so the ball goes under the knee, and then the ball goes under the left knee, and the block goes under the right. Okay, so that works, or a blanket under the knee, under the left knee. So first things first, I want you to center forward and just roll your shoulders. So they go up and back and down. And that movement in between when they go forward and up and back is kind of interesting, right? So if you go both directions, kind of play with your ability to move those shoulders around. And then I want you to just center your hands down, let them relax, and tilt your left ear to the shoulder. No judgment if it's a perfect reach, just feel how your neck stretches on the right side. Come back center, inhale, and tilt the right ear to the shoulder. Bring your chin center, turn to the right, bring the left hand to the right leg, either knee or above, and right hand back to the wall. If even with all that effort you now find that you're not close enough or you're too close, reset, it's worth it. Okay, this is definitely one of my very favorites to do for posture and abdominal strength and tone. And this, I like to call them the side-dominals. But when you're turning, feel if you can notice kind of your wing here, right? The armpit chest area into the inner calculation of our shoulder here, how we calculate this ability to stretch open in the pec, right? This area that has a lot of lymph nodes. So try to get this to reach back, even though it's in here, right? You're trying to move your shoulder back. Left hand to right leg. You can clutch the knee or just above. And then we'll just take off. We're going to lean to the left with our torso. We're going to reach that left arm down to the block and then bring the right arm over the side, just the side of your face. Maybe that's too far. Maybe a little further up is fine. But turn the ribs, turn your head down to the left side, maybe the arm, and just let your neck lean to the left. And the right arm releases back on your body. So it's not going to touch the wall here. I mean, you could play with that idea, but I don't think I'm getting there, right? You could work on it. If your arm is long enough, that might be interesting, but we're not trying to overdo this in our neck here. Just tilt and then turn your head down to that left leg, maybe. I like to keep it on the side, just the side stretches. Okay, that right arm swings back over the side of your face. Just feel that reach through the torso. Breathe. It really can help here, just breathing slow. And come on up. Turn back to the wall. One more time. Reach for it with the right hand. So you're doing a shoulder clock. So my hand just splays the fingers out, and then I'm trying to turn my shoulder just a little bit back. So I got to turn my hand. So my left hand can be to the right knee last time. So the shoulder clock is really interesting, I think, for the reality of this upper rib spaces, right, all the way up high. Okay, then relax down through that right arm, cross it in front of the chest. Oh, that's a tired arm. Okay. Stretching out through your deltoid. And then just roll your shoulders. Switch the sides. Okay. Left knee is going to bend now. Happy to bend. It's probably like, I'm glad I can bend. And then the block or the ball, whichever works for you. And maybe you put a blanket under the right knee and the ball under the left. I'm a fan of these, but I got to move my stand to the left side now. Okay. Yeah. So since we're going to move now right away to the left, so we're going to turn. So if you rotate and you feel like, I'm not quite as flexible, maybe it's because we did so much on the other side. So give yourself some time. Take a few breaths, let the ribs fill up. That's a big deal. Ribs fill them up in an intercostal motion, right? That elasticity of the ribs. Exhale. Let all that stale air out. Ha ha. If you need a cough or making some noises, that's fine. Okay, now I turn, and my right hand is to the left leg, knee or above, and my left hand goes back to the wall. But I should have made like a handprint at the wall so I could get about the same on this side, huh? That would have been good. I mean, by now you probably already have prints on the wall after doing Zoom for so long, huh? Okay, so turning, breathing, deep breath, ribs expand, that's key. Okay, now the exhale is when you get the rotation, right? So for me right now, my left knee's going up. It's not resting on my ball, okay? So that's something I'm going to try to fix, or my block on knee. So I'm going to try to let my knee rest into the block. So I'm still getting this right side of my back stretching. I don't want to yank the knee up, right? And contract as much. I want to just hold it. So it's like it's just a spot to touch to. That place that's important is this left arm. Okay, now I'm going to lean down to that right side. I'll take my block, thank you. Lean into it, and then work on this interesting kind of V shape in the back. I'm kind of opening up through the back, that lower quadrant, spanning out in the ribs. And if you decide you need your head to turn down to the right leg immediately, that's okay. There's no have-tos, right? You don't have to turn your head or have a certain direction of the arm. If you're tired, just let the left arm be behind your back and feeling how the weight leans into that right side on the block. Now I thought I would have my block lower, but this just seems perfect. I don't think I want to go downwards, just because my abdominals will just kind of slouch in more. Okay, so anytime I can get this turn. Now the left arm over the side of the face would be great. So maybe give that a try, huh? Maybe. Feel that reach through the torso. Breathe. Extend. Okay, let's take some momentum here. So if your arm is reaching, or if it's behind your back, no worries. Come up and turn to the left. Use that momentum to help you rotate. Okay, I know that we're using leverage to get to this. I realize that we're using a little bit of pressure, but I don't want you to try to get to the end range of things. So that's important for our bones as we get older, right? We're not trying to push the edge with the end range. We don't want to cause any damage. So when we turn, see if you can really feel that lift in the chest, like the sternum, right? I'm lifting here, even though it's really hard to get that to go up. Oh, and sitting bones, right? Easier for it to go up maybe when you're standing on your feet. Isn't that funny? Okay, now as you turn, breathe. And then left arm crosses in front of the chest, right hand touches that left arm. It doesn't have to be elbow, it could be a little bit above the elbow, like over towards the upper left side to the shoulder. And people kind of let the arm just go a little further down, like it's in a brace kind of thing, and then press into it. Take a few moments. Okay, let's go cobbler pose. So we're going to release the arm, roll the shoulders, take the soles of the feet together from sitting here, and then the sand goes on the feet, and my blocks go underneath my legs. So as I guide them in, I want you to get your belt and place it first, just a random grip on it. It doesn't have to be perfect or the belt buckled, but you're going to open up the chest, just be here. Breathe here now. Okay, the elbows could drop a little down. They might go higher or lower. You might do some lat pull downs just for fun, just to add some into your day. Okay, now caution on the elbow, the shoulder joint here. So I'm going to just let my belt lower down, give myself lots of slack here. And then I'm going to grab a hold of the belt. So I'm going to bring it around the back of my pelvis so it just kind of scoops around. And then my palms face forward. Okay. Then I reach my arms back. Shoulders roll back. Okay. Really scan what occurs in your shoulders here. So when we get on our back and do this, you'll go, okay, this applies even on my back. It's a lot easier when I'm sitting to do this. But that's the fun of yoga, right? We're exploring the potential and not blowing out the joints, right? We don't want to do that. We want to keep the reach of the arms, the shoulders. Okay, and then relax the grip and just smooth out your shoulders, roll them, just kind of like a subtle guided lift and round. I'll lift the sternum, and then we're going to take a back reach. So I want you to move your belt to the side. Actually, what we're going to do is go upside down. That's what we're doing. Okay, got it in my memory here. So take your blanket that's behind you. Maybe that's where it is. And it can be in a fold. Yeah, go ahead and make it a substantial kind of quarter fold, not too flat. Okay. Well, they're all going to be flat. That's just the nature of the blanket on the ground, huh? All right, just it doesn't need to be that puffed up. So you're going to turn on your bolster. It'll still like you, but turn on the bolster. And then you're going to shift back so that when you're lying on your bolster, which is under the back of your pelvis, right? Get your sand in an easy reach. Okay, make sure your sand is easy to clutch onto near you and your belts. Yeah. Proplandia. Proplandia, put sand on it, right? That's our version of class here. Okay, so we're gonna buckle up. I'll try to make this quiet. I tried to do this the other day quietly and I snapped my finger and tried to keep it pretty zen, but it wasn't easy. Okay, center of the bolster, tailbone at the edge, and then going back, and the legs are going to go up once you get a hold of them with your belt. So don't overdo it here. So my hips are up on the bolster. My belt is going to be placed at the feet. Now, if I put the belt at my feet and I push them out, and I have a buckle up, and you can always change the dynamic here, meaning if you decide I want to hold onto the belt, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, these are all different kind of qualities in the back. So if I'm holding my belt, you know, I have a little more correspondence here with my arms to deliver the focus in my back muscle. So it's kind of cool. But without holding, even though it looks like maybe it's a little more restorative or something, you might find a way to let the dynamic of the arms just stretch open, and then just feeling the difference in breathing when you're upside down. There is a difference in inner environment. There is a huge difference for the heart health, right? So this is our heart healthy component here. The legs could feel pretty pointy, like you're pointing them out. They could be bendy, just kind of relaxing on the back of the pelvis. Slow, deep breaths. You know, when you bend the legs, which you kind of have to do at some point, right? You're going to reach up to the belt, and as you slide the feet together, let's just let the left leg lower down and put a sandbag on it. Okay, so I'm a little close to the wall, but I'm perfectly touching it. So this is really a nice way to kind of articulate the reach of the bottom leg, because it does mean something. I mean, even though it seems like this right leg is the important leg in this moment, If you didn't have a left leg, right, it wouldn't be as important, right? You kind of need, it's helpful to have them both. So if you have both extremities right now, no, use them, use them wisely. But also notice the places in between, right? Like the correspondence on the core. So I take my belt, it's in a big loop. I kind of like sometimes to do the leg float with the arms reaching back, palms together. So between the webbing of between the thumb and the index, that thenar web space, I just hold on to it. I like that. Many of us like brain float. So if you're a brain floater, go for that at the occiput, that center of the back of the skull, about there, about the shelf. I say that often, but I'm usually above the shelf. For me, that holds well. And after doing this for a while, I kind of find where it's naturally supportive of lengthening in my neck. But if that's not where you want to go with it, be sure it's at your head, not your neck. The belt is not on the neck at all. It's at the head, right at the center up part of the back of your skull. If you're in brain float, yay, or if you're in the arms reaching overhead and leg float, so the arms hold the belt. And give it a few moments, feeling the foot that's touching either the wall or if it's resting on the ground. Feel the opposing reach of the extremities. And just notice where the deepest sensation really is. So for me, it's a way high from the back of my right knee, kind of up at the it feels like the thicker part of the hamstring zone that connects to the glute. I can kind of feel that zone. I mean, it's usually just, it's usually sat, I sit on it, right? We sit on it, it's sat upon, if you could say that's correct. So it's really an interesting zone to have in this shape. It's, again, it's not given quite that much flexibility and range during the day. Now, as we start to feel where the weight of our head leans back or our arms lean back, breathing. Right, oxygenation on repeat cycle, right? Okay, bend the right knee, take a strong bend. If you're holding the belt, just let it just hang down from your foot. If you want to keep it at the back of your head, then you switch sides, perfect, but not everybody likes that. Some find that a little panicky. So if you're going to keep it behind your head, carefully move your sand onto your belly, then lift the left foot up. Maybe you do that. Maybe you take it off and you just switch the foot in the belt, no problem. And the right leg has got a sandbag very soon, delivering on top of the very top layer of that right thigh. And as that sand is supporting your hip, and I'm a big fan of this one, I can either hold my belt, I can reach it back overhead, I can bring it to the back of my, right at the shelf at the back of my head. Right, so with that neck span, right, even touch the back of your, at the neck, the back line, and you might even kind of stroke that area up where it's to the brainstem. Just kind of feel your head lean back. If you're holding your belt, that's not going to be the same, right? So you can skip this one. And then feel a little bit of that nano bend of the knee. Relax the jaw. This is what I like, is to just let my jaw relax. A different stretch of it than I'm used to, which is just daily sitting upright, right? Just a different stretch. So let it, the tone in that jaw relax. But you do this every time before, right before the dentist, right? A little brain float. Tell them to just hold on for a few moments. Okay. So now as we let the spine stretch a little longer, so this is the left side of my spine stretching. I know it's a leg, but it connects up to that side band, right? And then all the way up, right past the traps into the actual attachment of them, right at the occiput. Okay, now as we move the sand aside, we're going to do a little side-to-side motion right for the leg. So hold on to the belt, slide it off the back of your head, cross the left leg to the right. Just a moment. Just so you can kind of feel, oh, yeah, that attachment into my, remember I was talking about like that, where you might feel the most spaciousness might be the top, might kind of feeling near the rear. And then as the leg swings back up, change. Right foot, cross over to the left. Left foot doesn't have to touch the wall. That might be overdoing it. You want to feel like you can really curl parts of the body, really contour. Really important to feel that contour and curving aspect of hip and back. Just bend that right knee, pull it back in. And then as we move the belt to the side, we're going to bring our knees in, take a ball between the knees, and just let the knees go side to side. Feeling that isolation of having the hips up on something. So when your knees swerve, it's going to be moving the abdominals, the back muscles. You go as far over as you like. You might even bring the knees towards the arm each time. And your head can roll a little side to side. You can have the elbows resting. And as you come back center, knees to chest, hands on bolster, push the bolster down, away from under the back of the pelvis. It doesn't have to be that far away in the beginning stage, but at some point get your feet on it and push it to the wall. Okay, now scoot down to the wall just a little bit so you still have your blanket underneath the center of the back of your head. If the blanket feels too bulky, you can always take it down a little bit to make the layer of it not quite so high up, and then push into your feet on the bolster. That's key, and the hips go up. Now this is where I was thinking of when we were at the wall with our shoulders back. We just had to go through a few poses first. So robot arms, and then lower down the hands and the base of the spine. Inhale, robot arms, elbows press, hands up. Try to get the shoulders back, and then lower the spine. That's tricky. So when I bring my hands up, right, my elbows pressed to get my shoulders to roll back. Just take a couple more. If you want to bring your arms overhead, because I sure do, you might go with that. Like that just feels so much smoother through the back. So the felt sense here of a spine moving in flexion, and then extension right when the hip flexors lift up and then down. The last one. Now you might even kind of mount the shape by pushing into your feet, maybe a little squeeze into the ball. Really kind of light up those hip flexors. They're the only ones you got, okay? You don't get an extra bag of them. Okay, so as the spine lowers, feel that lower abdominal centering right below the navel center. Okay? Knees to the chest, take the ball out, place the ball under your left buttock, feet on the bolster, and rolling out the glute. Okay, nice work. We're in the final spinal. We made it. The stuff that feels just good. No curiosity about what's up next. You gotta have the idea. Sometimes the last three shapes are similar in the last class. So we're rolling through the glutes. We're going to stay one buttock at a time, and then move the ball to the other side carefully, over to the right, and roll. Let the hip go side to side. Okay, definitely rock the hip so it's tail motioning side to side. Wag your tail. If the knees don't seem to move much, that's good. Right? We want to really work with the pelvis, monitor that movement, and then with the touch of the ball, it really has that. The ball has a broad effect on the skin and the surface muscles, blending pressure and movement into these nerve-rich areas here. So we're getting more circulation into this spot. And then as we come back center, taking the ball out, go to the left side, ball goes left, right knee bends, and I'm going to just kick my bolster to the right side of the mat and then cross the left leg on top of that bolster. If it's not going to reach the bolster like your foot does but your knee doesn't, put a block under the inside of that left lower leg. You might have to kind of push the bolster or basically pull it in closer to you. Right, that seems a little more satisfying. But if you can touch on it, then let that be. And then the ball goes to the sacrum and the sand goes to the outer left hip. Okay? Let the left arm open. And create that circulation in the ribs. Expand, left arm out. Bending the bottom leg is probably the most critical part on this one, even though it's clear the left leg is the important piece. But we don't want the right leg to be straight and tighten our back. So feel bendy, okay? Okay, maybe move the sand if it feels like you can't quite release in it. Sometimes for me, it's too much weight at the top. Okay, now as we move the ball and then the sand, and we'll take that crossover to that second side. So when I bring the knees to point up to center, I can take the knees together, just resting in constructive rest. These are my sacrum, just to find that balance between the twist, and the bolster gets moved over to the left side of my mat for my practice space. And then I sometimes find just let the knees have that strong bend, and then I just lean into my knees on the left, let them go left, and then swing the right leg on top of the bolster. Now with that reach, you can add the ball, you can add the sand, and you can certainly go minus the sand if it feels like it's already enough. Some of us might end up having a block under the knee or a blanket here under the knee if that's a little bit, well, it's softer and it's easier to hold on the bolster, right? So you might have to take a few moments to get some more props to put under your right leg. And one side is likely a little different than the other, right? Your dominant leg might have some areas that are really mobile and they just swing into action. But noticing that, how that affects in our lower back too. So we want to have equal opportunity for that second side. So that's going to require us to just be slow. Keep it simple. Right leg is up on top of the bolster on the left side. If that's too much, right, you can always have the knees just side to side over in like a fetal position, resting without the bolster or the bolster between the knees. There's many ways to get support to stretch out the back line of our back muscles into our hip. So it's connecting the two layers of essential ingredients to being in a body, right? Sometimes we might think our spine or hips are important. Probably more so the spine, right, is really important to find that essential reach. And just rest back into opening the chest. Just feel how you ring out, right? It's a twisting, it's a cleansing feeling when you're ringing out in the center. It brings a lot of heat and warmth into these muscles, organs, digestive area. So feeling the existence of breath, because there's resistance each time you breathe in those organs, right? Especially digestive area, right? When you inhale in a twist. Okay, now when we move out, we've moved the ball, goes bye-bye. The sand stays nearby. Push it to the wall. If you decide not to do legs up the wall and you want to do a bolster bench, you can do that too. Okay, so roll to the left and come up. If you decide bolster bench, what you would do is a couple blocks under your bolster like this, 2 blocks, second setting, bring them in close enough so your bolster can be held on it. So if you find that going legs up is just the dynamic is too crazy right now. Make sure you have something that's sensible for you, because some of us legs up is a little wild and crazy. Okay, so when we sit on the bolster next to the wall, if you're choosing this one, you're going to go to the edge of the bolster, right on the side, very much like it's a teeter-totter here. If you look down at the bolster, it's lifting up. And you're going to roll onto the back of the pelvis and swing the legs up. Definitely practice. It gets easier. If your seat is not at the wall, that's fine. Some of you are kind of a natural at that. What you're natural at is your back bend is good. So sometimes it's how flexible my back is, that my seat gets closer because I have that curve into the spine. So this is as much of a back bend, even though it doesn't seem like that's its focus, as it is an inversion. It's both, okay? So it's quite healthy, right, for my lungs, my heart. So I'm going to bring my sand to my feet. I'm going to bend the knees, squeeze them in towards my chest. And then as I push the sand with my feet, I might kind of move it a little bit so it seems like it's kind of satisfying to be on the soles of my feet, and just let your spine take a few moments here to get a nice full extension of my spine. You can place a blanket on you, an eye pillow, you decide. Or just be and really finding where you receive the breath, right? Is it in the belly where it moves? Is it higher up in the chest? Just see how far downwards you can move the breath in the core towards the belly organs. And then it has a little bit more work to do to release back towards the heart, just as far as that circulation. And then gravity helps the lymph just passively drain to your chest right now. And that's the area where then it moves down through the blood, right? That's its move. It moves into the blood, into the organs of elimination. So it's great to have the legs high up, but if it's on a bolster, that's okay. Or a chair. You don't have to have it all the way up this high. Just let the back be calm, the brain relax. And then feeling the breath motion in through the nose for maybe a count of 4. And then relaxing out for 1 to 3 counts longer. So think of it as seconds, right? Or just the pause. So as I exhale, I just try to let the breath go all the way to its ends. And then as I breathe in, find what's comfortable for my heart, for my brain, for my ability to relax. Get your head nod a little side to side, unless you have an eye pillow. And now finally let the arms lower down so they're below the level of the heart. Slowing down the heart rate, the blood pressure lowers. Okay, now when you soften in the knees, you'll just move your feet from the wall, bend the knees deeper. And then carefully, you can actually toss the sand overhead or actually physically move it with your hands. Hug the backs of the legs in towards the ribs, feeling how you apply the touch of the body on the props. Even though you might think of touch just with hands, the props do give us that touch. Kind of nice. The sand does, the bolster does. Really manipulates just that movement into the skin in a safe way. And then roll to the side. You might swipe a little back and forth, get a nice kind of combination of movement in the upper lobes of the lungs. And then as you go across and let the hands bring you up, and take a moment, just kind of nestle into your seat, bring the hands to the heart center, palm to palm. And then as we just observe our awareness from practice, breathing and wellness together for yourself, for others.